Are they fearful of this uprising, or do you think they feel we've got this and we just have to power through it and we'll end up crushing these people in the end?
They have no choice than to power through. They're like a bulldozer. And this is why, President Trump was such a huge thorn and is such a huge thorn. And the entire ultra MAGA movement is such a huge thorn to them.
Ladies and gentlemen, the war on terror is now officially, definitively over. How do I know this? Just the other day, Noor bin Laden, I think you might recognize her last name as being that of Osama bin Laden, aka the Michael Jordan of terrorism. And this isn't by accident or coincidence. She's the niece of Osama bin Laden. Noor bin Laden was on Steve Bannon's podcast, which is called, hold on, let me check, The War Room. She was on his War Room podcast, just up there, just basically spitting your run-of-the-mill MAGA greatest hits rhetoric, right? Elites are like bulldozers enacting a worldwide agenda. This is why Donald Trump was such a huge threat to them and a thorn in their side. The MAGA movement is just a big thorn to the elites. She's saying, judging by the intensification of the attacked and blatant racial steal of the 2020 election and all the different efforts, like she ran down all the MAGA greatest hits.
The blatant, farcical steal of the 2020 election and all the different efforts, it goes from the quote disinformation board, everything that they're trying to do, which is so grotesque, frankly, to be able to push through with this agenda, to me, is just smacks of desperation. And you say we are the silent majority. We have reached a critical mass where enough of us are completely awake to what they're trying to do, and we are enough that will not let this happen.
And what's important about this is not what this woman said on Steve Bannon's whack-ass podcast. It's more of the fact that she's on there at all, right? I'm old enough to remember when it was a big deal to be palling around with terrorists. I'm old enough to remember when, it was like, oh, they're building another mosque somewhere, and everybody had to panic, right? Like there was all of this brown people, anti-Islamic rhetoric, anti-Muslim rhetoric that was, all over the right wing and the far right. When's the last time you even heard about ISIS as a talking point? Remember when ISIS was the boogeyman that was going to come and kill your children in their crib and then eat them for parts and all of this stuff? Like, you never, ever hear this type of rhetoric anywhere, much less even the far right of the country, who the people who were beating this drum the loudest, right? And so for Noor bin Laden to be a prominent guest on Steve Bannon's podcast, that should signal to you that there's been a large, major shift away from this stuff. The GOP has finally gotten it through their thick skull. This stupid rhetoric that came out of Barry's overwhelming election in 2008 and 2012, this idea that the Democrats would be destined for majorities forever, quote unquote, demographics were destiny. That is out of the window. I think you've seen it with the Latino vote during the 2020 election. You see it where Steve Bannon doesn't even care to have, again, the niece of the Michael Jordan of terrorism on his podcast. Like, they've thrown that out. They understand that there are people that can be won in all kind of quote unquote POC demographics with their exact messaging. And they're attacking in full force. The Democrats are in trouble, man. They basically condescended to minorities and just told them that we love you and that's why you should vote for us. Never extended to them improvements to their lives and their material needs. And the GOP and the far right, they are hitting this thing with abandon, and it's a scary sight for people who care about democratic politics.